I didn't raise my voice when Karen the HOA president screamed across the meeting room that they'd de-seize me by force if they had to. Everyone turned to look at her, but I just slid the property deed across the table. The county seal shimmered faintly under the light. You could almost feel the panic spread when their lawyer realized the document proved my land wasn't part of their HOA at all. I didn't have to say a word. The silence did the work for me. That moment didn't happen by luck. It was the result of weeks of quiet, careful planning. The kind of patience you only find when people push you so far. That calm becomes your only weapon. When I bought my little house at the edge of the subdivision, I wasn't looking for a fight. I'd spent 15 years working in the city, saving every penny for a piece of land I could actually call mine. The property was perfect, a single acre bordered by oak trees, with an old farmhouse and a gravel driveway that curved down toward the main road. It sat just outside the HOA boundary, according to the county map. That was important to me. I didn't want a committee telling me what color mailbox I could have. I wanted peace, privacy, and the freedom to breathe without asking permission. At first, life, there was everything I hoped it would be. Mornings were quiet, except for birds and the distant hum of tractors from nearby farms. I spent weekends restoring the porch, repainting the shutters, and clearing the field behind the house. A few neighbors waved when they passed. Others, mostly the ones deeper in the HOA subdivision, seemed unsure what to make of me. Especially Karen. Karen was the kind of person who believed order was more important than reason. She'd been HOA president for years, and I suspect she thought her authority extended beyond the borders of her little kingdom. When she first introduced herself, she smiled like a politician, tight, practiced, and slightly condescending. She said things like, "We like to keep the area neat, and everyone follows the same rules here." I politely told her my property wasn't under HOA jurisdiction. Her smile faltered for half a second before she replied, "Oh, I'm sure that's just a paperwork misunderstanding. We'll get it sorted." That misunderstanding became the start of a months-long headache. It began with letters printed on official-looking HOA letterhead, full of legal buzzwords and empty threats. The first one accused me of violating property maintenance standards because my fence didn't match the neighborhood design. The second demanded I remove a non-compliant structure, meaning the small shed behind my house that came with the property decades before the HOA even existed. I tried reasoning at first. I sent polite emails explaining that my parcel was outside their recorded boundaries. I even attached a copy of the county zoning map, highlighting the line that clearly separated my land from theirs. The replies were curt, dismissive, and increasingly aggressive. When diplomacy failed, Karen showed up in person. She parked her SUV halfway across my driveway, arms crossed, eyes narrowed like she was inspecting a crime scene. "This property," she said, waving a clipboard, "is still considered part of the association's protected zone." "No," I said, "it isn't." "Check the plat. Lot 32 ends before my fence line. This is Lot 33, an unincorporated parcel." She smirked. "We'll see about that." And they did see about it. Within 2 weeks, I got notices claiming unpaid dues, fines for community disruption, and threats of legal action. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been so persistent. They even mailed letters to my mortgage company, insisting I was in violation of HOA rules. A desperate attempt to create problems where none existed. That's when I stopped trying to argue and started building a record. Every letter, every voicemail, every knock on my door, I documented it all. I pulled the official county records, including the subdivision plat from 1987 that explicitly showed my land outside their jurisdiction. I found the incorporation documents for the HOA, the recorded covenants, conditions, and restrictions, and most importantly, the legal boundary description written in the meets and bounds format. It clearly ended 57 feet short of my western fence. I also discovered something else. The HOA had illegally placed a private property sign across a strip of county-maintained easement that connected my driveway to the main road. That sign, in the eyes of the law, was a public obstruction. The more I researched, the more the whole situation looked like an empire built on arrogance and paper walls. When I finally confronted them, I didn't go in angry. I requested a place on the agenda for the next HOA meeting. pretending I wanted to clarify the situation. They probably expected me to back down or apologize. Instead, I arrived with a calm expression, a folder full of documents, and a quiet determination that made Karen visibly uncomfortable. The meeting was held in the subdivision's community hall. Beige walls, folding chairs, the smell of burnt coffee. Karen sat at the front beside the board members, wearing her signature floral blouse and a smug smile. "Mr. Carter," she began, "you've been notified multiple times about violations. This is your last warning before we escalate this legally." I nodded politely. "I'm aware. That is actually why I'm here to clear things up once and for all." I took the deed out of the folder and laid it flat on the table. "This is the recorded property deed for my parcel. Lo 33 ULL. Notice that the legal description begins and ends outside your HOAS boundary. The subdivision covenant, you read quoting, recorded under document number 19870-412, applies only to lots 1 through 32. Karen frowned, glancing at her lawyer, who began flipping through a stack of papers. I continued, "I also have a letter from the county surveyor confirming that the HOAS boundary line ends 57 feet east of my fence, and here is a copy of the county's right-of-way maintenance map, proving your private sign is on public land." The room went quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioner. Karen's face flushed red. "That's not possible," she said sharply. "We've always isn't a legal term," I interrupted, my voice steady. "Boundary descriptions are." The lawyer cleared his throat and muttered something about needing to verify the documents. But it was already over. Everyone in the room could see the truth laid out in black and white. Karen's composure cracked. She slammed her clipboard down and shouted, "We'll seize you by force if we have to. You can't ignore the HOA." I looked her in the eye and said quietly, "Try it, and the sheriff's department will seize you for trespassing." That was the last real thing I ever said to her. A week later, a formal notice arrived not from the HOA, but from the county attorney's office. Apparently, one of the letters the HOA had sent me, threatening property enforcement, violated state law. Using intimidation to claim control over known HOA land is considered a civil offense in our state. The HOA was fined. Karen was forced to step down as president. After that, the neighborhood changed. The new board members were quieter, humbler. They sent me a written apology and removed the illegal sign from the easement. For the first time in months, I could drive down my own road without feeling like I was crossing enemy lines. These days, the air around here feels lighter. The same people who once glared at me now wave when I pass. Even Karen avoids me. Or maybe CS just avoiding the memory of being proven wrong in front of 30 of her neighbors. My fence still stands. My shed still stands. And the deed, the one she called meaningless, is framed on my office wall as a quiet reminder of what patience and paperwork can do. Sometimes I catch myself smiling when I think back to that meeting. The way her lawyer went pale. The way the room fell silent. Not because I wanted to humiliate anyone, but because there's something deeply satisfying about winning without shouting. Now, when I sit on the porch in the evenings, I can hear the crickets again instead of Karen's SUV, idling at the end of my driveway. The land feels like mine again, not because I fought for it with anger, but because I fought for it with proof. And that's the thing about people like Karen. They think volume equals power. But power, real power, is quiet, factual, and written in ink older than their bylaws. So when she screamed that day about seizing me by force, I didn't even flinch. Ehust smiled because I already knew the truth. They couldn't seize what they never owned. And now, finally, it's quiet again.